On October 21st, 2014, Shia Labeouf Live was uploaded to YouTube and let loose on the world. It was spread basically everywhere as soon as it was posted and accumulated over 500,000 views in its first few days on the site. Today, it sits at over 79 million views. With that said, we are still left with many questions. Why a song about Shia LaBeouf? Why depict him as murderous and psychopathic years before any of his many controversies? Why an operatic and sensational music video 2 years after its release? And why did it conquer the internet? I guess, like any good video essay, we'll start at the beginning. The Big Bang occurred roughly 13.8 billion years ago, creating our universe. Mainly composed of hydrogen and helium, the newly formed universe— hold on. Oh crap, we're on a tight schedule. Okay, let's just skip ahead to Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf was born June 11th, 1986. Some kids were born with silver spoons in their mouths, rich and spoiled from the moment they spawned. Shia was born with a rusty nail in his mouth. His parents, Jeffrey LaBeouf and Shayna Saida, were both artists who never found an audience. His dad especially had a hard time supporting the family as a Vietnam vet who, shockingly, didn't handle the war well. As such, the family was dirt poor, which, as is sadly so common, ultimately tore apart their marriage. This wasn't the only factor, of course, but it was the only factor Shia could comprehend in 1996 at the young age of 10. He explained to Parade magazine, "I knew that money was a solution to whatever the hell was going on in my household. With money, I and my family would have more options. So I went after a job that I thought could make the most money for a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old boy. That job ended up being stand-up comedy. I am not kidding." He would traverse the scum-riddled streets of Los Angeles and convince nightclub owners to let him perform stand-up comedy for their patrons. He was 10 years old. To quote a separate Parade interview, "My humor came from seeing my parents have sex, smoke weed, my mom being naked, just weird hippie stuff, twisted, R-rated humor." He added, "I'd get up there in my Oshkosh Bagosh outfit and my bowl haircut. I was a little kid with a Lenny Bruce mouth. That was the act. But there was no money in stand-up comedy, so I went into acting." At 11, he found an agent in the Yellow Pages and pretended to be the British manager of a young talent by the name of Shia LaBeouf. As funny as it would be if the agent believed him, Teresa Dahlquist saw right through it and signed him as a client anyway. Not only that, she drove him to all his auditions and paid his rent. "She became one of the few pillars in my life," LaBeouf said. "She lifted me up and cared for me. She said, 'Hey kid, see that mountain? Go move it.'" Within a year, LaBeouf would be acting in small parts on TV and film, and eventually he landed his own show on the Disney Channel, Even Stevens, soon earning him an Emmy at the young age of 17. Then came Transformers, Disturbia, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. A new decade was dawning on an actor with a career that had potential written all over it. But as his career became more prolific and his name more well-known, he eventually fell in the path of this video's true focus. He too was an artist, and his hard work, dedication, and unique tastes would lead to a masterpiece that forever cemented Shia LaBeouf's name in the annals of internet history. That man was Rob Cantor.
Start your life, open up your eyes and receive the lights of 1985.
You may not know the name Rob Cantor, I didn't until just a few seconds ago, but you undoubtedly know his music. Most likely through his participation in the band Tally Hall, those guys with the white shirts and colorful ties. They formed in 2002 and made 2 albums, Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum and Good and Evil, before entering an indefinite hiatus in 2011. Still don't recognize him? Okay, well some of his other work went viral in the early 2010s, like 29 celebrity impressions, 1 original song. Still nothing. Fine, I've got one last ace up my sleeve. If you, like me, are a worthless Gen Z millennial leftist who never lived one day under nuclear threat, you may know the band, and especially Rob's work, from Playhouse Disney, later rebranded as Disney Junior.
Great Scott!
Specifically the short-lived animated series Happy Monster Band, which aired from 2007 to 2008, which featured music composed by the band, Rob especially. The reason I say Rob especially is because, to quote Wikipedia, while Ink may appear to be the leader, many fans tend to regard Fred as the actual leader. Fans of Happy Monster Band. If you still don't recognize him, that's fine. You'll get to know him plenty throughout this video. Our story begins in 2011 when Rob was moving a huge couch with the help of his friend Andrew Lorick. Suddenly, and for no particular reason at all, Lorick chose to whisper very intensely the name Shia LaBeouf. Cantor found this hilarious. And like any creative individual would, he wrote an entire song centered around an encounter with the impending threat of Shia Labeouf. Keep in mind, at the time, Shia was just an actor, with little to no controversies relative to the average celebrity. So contrary to what you may have thought, Cantor told the Washington Post that he was simply inspired by nothing but the sheer silliness of imagining Shia Labeouf facing clothes smeared with half-dried blood, terrorizing helpless victims in a dark wood. Initially, he pitched the demo to Funny or Die, hoping to produce a literal interpretation of the song's lyrics with the help of a big comedy website. Sadly, they rejected the idea, and so, with no real clue of what to do with it, the demo lay dormant on his hard drive. Finally, after a year, Rob decided to just dump the track onto his SoundCloud. That way, at least some die-hard fans would hear it. And hear it the fans did. One of them, Cause Baldwin, who sadly passed away just a few months ago as of the writing of this video, tweeted about the song and got the ball rolling on its virality. After that, it was picked up and spread by sites like Boing Boing and BuzzFeed, and by the end of 2012, the song had over 1 million plays on SoundCloud. Not YouTube or Facebook, SoundCloud. With this incredible success, those of you unfamiliar with the song's story likely assume that Rob immediately set off working on the now iconic music video.
You're not just wrong, you're stupid. Now wait just a minute. And you're ugly, just like your mum.
Nothing about this story is normal, and you should never make any assumptions about anything related to Rob Cantor. The man has released nothing but kids' music in the last decade, with the exception of his first solo album, Not a Trampoline, released in 2014. It was actually this album's release that would convince Rob to return to the song, not only as a way to promote it, but to give the track the dramatic video it had always deserved. Plus, Halloween was fastly approaching, and the themes of the song were fitting.
But your leg! Ah! It's caught in a bear trap!
But I personally think there remains another reason for this music video's creation at this point in time, outside of what Rob was willing to admit in an interview. 2014 marked a clear shift in the way the public saw Shia Labeouf. If we are to believe Time magazine's, quote, comprehensive timeline of Shia LaBeouf's weirdest behavior, there was only one real incident before the release of the song in 2012. Though this was quickly disregarded, as the young actor explained in an interview with David Letterman.
And so after the movie was done, I was in Chicago getting ready for another thing, and I decided to go nuts. And I went nuts.
Now, what exactly does that mean? Let's define some terms.
Well, okay, we'll define it. I got really wasted.
Right.
So I got pretty wasted in Chicago and wound up celebrating in Walgreens.
What Walgreens? The drugstores?
Yeah, the drugstore.
Yeah.
If anything, he made the charge sound charming. But if you look at the next event in the timeline, you see December 2013. It came after LaBeouf's first short film was released on the internet, where it was quickly revealed to be plagiarized from a short story written by author Daniel Clowes. Don't let this surprise you. Shia had been caught plagiarizing a lot in the past, so much so that he often plagiarized his apologies for plagiarism. This time was different, however. He clearly took these accusations much harder, likely because this was his directorial debut. His way of lashing out at his accusers was found in February of 2014. He was set to appear at the Berlin Film Festival for the premiere of Nymphomaniac, and this was his now iconic and endlessly parodied apparel at the event. Shortly after, Shia appeared at a press conference at the same festival where he said,
"When the seagulls follow the trawler, it is because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much."
Before walking out. Reporters were quick to point out that the line was borrowed from Eric Cantona, a Manchester United football player. Finally, later that year in June, he was arrested for walking up to the stage of a Broadway show and trying to grab Alan Cumming. I don't entirely know what his motives were for this one. So what I'm saying is that before 2014, the mainstream public knew Shia LaBeouf as the guy from Transformers who was funny on SNL. After 2014, the mainstream public knew Shia LaBeouf as the guy who just could not stay out of the news. So with Not a Trampoline coming out, Halloween being just over the horizon, and the song's subject matter being more relevant than ever, Rob Cantor moved ahead with the production of the music video. In an interview with MTV, Cantor explained his thought process behind the video. The idea of such an absurd song in a very serious setting just seemed so funny to me. Passionate choristers, interpretive dance, string quartet bowing away, all taking itself very seriously. And then the song is about Shia LaBeouf being a cannibal. I found out recently that's called bathos. Serious and absurd juxtaposed. I like bathos. He dropped the exact interpretation he was aiming for when he pitched the idea to Funny or Die in favor of a much more dramatic adaptation. But at this point, all Rob had was a weird demo and an even weirder music video concept. To get the project made, Cantor pulled out all the stops. He emailed everyone he could and called in favors from any friend available. One of these friends, Greg Nicolette, would be instrumental in the final product. He was the arranger responsible for evolving Rob's bedroom demo into an orchestral feast. He explained, "Rob knew I had a passion for orchestral film music, and asked me if I could turn his song into an epic symphonic oratorio. My first thought was, yes, but why?" It was he who convinced Rob to settle for a string quartet for the video rather than the 50-piece orchestra that the artist originally wanted, explaining that it was not only cheaper, but more pretentious as well. Rob also knew from the get-go that he wanted a large men's choir. Coincidentally enough, he already had another friend who was singing in the gay men's chorus of Los Angeles. And after not very much convincing, they were all happily aboard. Then came the dance troupe, who were all trained by Stacey Tookey. She brought some of her most trusted and exceptional dancers and managed to completely plan and prepare the choreography only 3 or 4 days before shooting. If you think that's a small window of time for something so important, you'd be right, but it's completely believable with this music video. Scott Olfelder, who served as director and cinematographer, added, "Every day it was like, oh, maybe we can add this thing, or hey, I know this person." Every other day, some new thing was getting added. Like, since he had connections to the gay men's chorus, he asked, how many people can we get involved? Oh, we can get 10. No, we can get 20. No, 25. Ultimately, the total number of performers came out to be 85, including, but not limited to, 8 dancers, a harpist, the Argus Quartet, the West Los Angeles Children's Choir, a pianist, Tally Hall's own Zubin Sedji and Bora Karaka, aerialists hanging from the ceiling that even the director didn't know about until the very last minute, 2 guys simply credited as Kung Fu Men, and 39 members of the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles, as well as dozens of other hardworking and dedicated people behind the cameras. Everything about this performance was an uphill battle. Even the Shia Labeouf heads were a feat of their own. Rob Cantor shared behind-the-scenes photos and details in December of 2014 on Reddit. They were designed by Eric Testroit, but had to be printed and folded manually. The task ultimately fell on the shoulders of Rob himself, who with the help of 5 friends, spent 16 hours cutting, gluing, and folding the paper cutouts into their familiar shape. Finally, with the many cogs set in their place, the gargantuan cast and crew organized at the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center, the quote, nicest theater we could afford. Contrary to what you might believe, the song was not done in one long, incredible take, but rather cut up into small, incredible chunks that were edited seamlessly together in post. The day started at 3:30 in the afternoon and stretched to fill the entire allotted 12 hours they had paid for. And so, after weeks of endless devotion from all those involved, the production wrapped and the video soared. But there remains one detail that I have purposely left out. A twist so devious and shocking that it transformed the song into an instant internet classic. As the music video winds down, the dancers fall to the ground and the camera focuses on Rob. He mutters,
You're finally safe from Shia Labeouf.
The camera holds on him for just a moment until you hear distant clapping from a lone audience member. The camera pans to reveal Shia Labeouf. It's interesting. I knew Labeouf was familiar with the song because he had tweeted it out on Halloween a year before we started working on the video, but I didn't have any kind of direct relationship or line of communication with him. So I wrote an email explaining what we were trying to do and some ideas for how he might be involved. One of them was that he would be revealed at the end as the lone audience member, which is obviously what we ended up doing. And then I was able to track down an email address for his manager. I sent an email off and really never expected to hear anything back, but figured I ought to at least give it a try. And lo and behold, 2 days later, I got an email back from the manager saying that Shia was in. It was very serendipitous and unexpected, and I was extremely excited when I got that email. I'd wager right about now you're asking yourself the same question an MTV interviewer asked Rob. What was it like to work with him? To which Cantor politely answered, on set he was extremely kind and gracious, unpretentious and professional, and he nailed every single take, as you'd expect. Rob ended up winning a Webby for the song, and in case you don't know, Webby Award winners are only allowed 5 words for their acceptance speech. This was Rob's.
I never learned how to count.
A truly unique speech from a truly unique man for a truly unique song.
Say yes, sex in a violet dress. Whatever pride I had is gone. Obsessed, darling, I must confess.